Okay, so this we can do in your JavaScript, where it is a heterogeneous data structure. You have the combination of multiple data types, right? Whereas coming to your TypeScript, we could able to make it as a homogeneous data structure. So how you're going to make it as homogeneous? We can declare, say something called as well, say some data is equal to, okay, this is data is equal to data colon string of like this. So when you're declaring the array at line number 4, which indicates that this is an array which is capable of holding multiple values which are of only string data type. I say var user ages colon something called as numbers like this. So which is like an array capable of holding only numbers. So like this, you could able to store where mixed data is obviously you know that, right? Union type we have already discussed. What do you mean by union? In a single array, array with multiple values we could able to define. I mean, like a normal variable, right? For example, I say var uh, is fee paid, where the is fee paid could be something called as a number, or it could be something called as a boolean like this. So what does that indicate? So if you say is fee paid is equal to something called as one, also works where this guy is a number, where this guy is a boolean. So as like normal variables, which is taking a union data type, even arrays also can take union data type. So what I'm doing here, so if you see here at line number 3, you are creating an array which is capable of holding a number or a string. Other than that, if you give something called as bool, say something called as true, that doesn't work. Okay, because you have given only either number or a thing. Okay, so this is how you're going to create an array in your in your TypeScript. It is possible for you to make an array is a homogeneous data structure. On the top, for example, if you want to apply any of the methods and all, it's all going to be the same as it is what you have in your JavaScript, right? For example, this is an array. If you want to push the data, I say something called as push, something called, okay, this is a normal array, right? Instead of this, for example, this is a number. User ages is equal to so and so. I say user ages dot put something called as so and so. User ages dot so and so. User ages dot pop. Okay, pop something like this. So whatever the JavaScript methods we have, something called as find method, the map method, filter method, the reduce method, for each method. Okay, sort method. So these all are the methods by default which will be supported. Whatever the uh, methods which are there in your JavaScript, the same thing can be used even in your TypeScript. And other than that, one more feature what we have is read-only feature. So what do you mean by read-only? I'll say something called where say something called as account details or account numbers. Okay, when I say account numbers, what I would like to do is I would like to say read only and so and so. What do you mean by this? Whenever you are saying something called as a read only, you are going to hard code the array with some default values on the top. If you try to push any data or if you want to modify any data, that cannot be done. Okay, the name itself specifies read only, which indicates that it's just like a constant which cannot be modified. Okay, I mean, what are the values being assigned? It will just be there. You cannot insert or you cannot delete any values from it. Okay, and on the top, as I said, right, for example, if you want to iterate over this array, say something called as user ages dot for each, okay, the same syntax, you know, I say items, I say console dot log item. Okay, and if at all you want to compile this, let's say remove this. If at all you want to compile this, let's go to the command prompt DSC arrays demo.ps. You just compiles and you go with node array demo.js. This is how it is. Okay, simple. I mean, nothing much difference. Only thing is homogeneous structures can be defined. And on the top, we can even define, what do you say, two-dimensional arrays also if you want. Okay, two-dimensional, three-dimensional, any dimensional, like matrix you could able to define. Example, dimensional arrays. Like say, for example, this is how it is. So two-dimensional array, which is indicating that you can have, say, some 3 by 3 array, 2 by 2 array, whatever you want, you could able to specify. Okay. Any questions up to this? And like here, even it is being supported with something called as, it is even supported with something called as tuples. Okay, what do you mean by tuple? A tuple is a fixed length array. Okay, it is a fixed length array with what we can say is with the specific types, with specified data types for each index. So what do you mean by tuple here? For example, I say um, let us say something called as address. Okay, so what I'm going to define is, so this is going to be a tuple. I'm going to say this array is going to hold only three values. I'm going to say this guy is going to hold only first thing as number, second thing as string, and third string as string. So this is called as a tuple. It is a fixed length array which is going to be specified with the data types of each index. Whatever the value we are going to specify for at a particular value, at a particular position, that is going to be fixed. Now, if you see here, I'm going to modify this guy to this. Okay, so this is going to be an error. Why the reason? You mentioned that there are three values, where the first guy should be always say number. Okay, so that is the small difference between the array and the tuple. This is again a good interview question also. Okay, what is the difference between your arrays and your tuples? In JavaScript, tuples are not supported, whereas in your TypeScript, tuples are supported. Okay. Any questions here? Swati, suppose if a method is capable of returning an array or array of object, how to define a function? Shall we take it as a separate, Swati? We'll just discuss only arrays, we'll discuss only objects, then we'll go with the functions. We'll define a function which is returning an array, define a function which is returning an object of specific type. Okay, that I'll define in your functions. I know that, I mean, we have just checked small, one simple example of function, but today we'll discuss much more about different ways of defining the function. Okay. Any more questions? Anyone? Any more questions? Okay. As I have shown you, like if you see, I was using for each method. If you want to use filter method, if you want to use find method, if you want to use sort method, reduce method, map method, excuse me. So any of the methods you wanted, which is by default, whatever the JavaScript methods are there, those all will be supported in your TypeScript also. Okay. So in the same way, let us even go with,
Sir, same methods we can use for tuples also.
yes, ma'am. So tuple is indirectly an array, right? If you see, we are not saying like it has a two different data structure. It is a fixed array length. For example, if you would like to say console.log address dot length. Okay, so if you see your dot length is a property which is actually coming from the string. The same thing can be used.
Oh, thank you.
Okay. Any more
Yeah.
questions?
We
Go
need to
ahead.
try to check the type of this address, the line number 34. Like what
Okay.
type it is going
So
to
if I
give.
say console.log type of what is expected, you tell me.
Tuple.
Tuple.
Well, come on. Are you sure? Full
Array.
is not.
Array.
Come on. Do you have an array data structure?
Object.
object. Okay, it is always a object. Any questions? Even in JavaScript also, we don't have a data structure. I mean, we don't have a type called as array, which is always an object. Any more questions? Satish, we can run TypeScript without compile, right? We can run TypeScript without compile, right? For that, we have something called as PS compilers, but that doesn't work in your web pages, Satish. I mean, there are some other tools which are available which can help you directly compile your TypeScript, directly run your TypeScript. But when it comes to the browser, for sure you need to have a compilation converting into JavaScript. That doesn't work in your web pages. Clear, Satish? Okay. Any more questions? Sri, do you have a
Sir,
question?
actually, in Angular, we use TypeScript, right, sir?
Mhm.
That one will, by default, it will convert into JS file. After that, only it will execute, sir. I mean, in the
Yes.
framework.
Exactly. Either you use in Angular, even in React also, we will get to see how you are creating a TypeScript file. I mean, how you're creating a TypeScript based TSX files. So on fly, when it is running in your local, when it is running in your local without conversion on fly, it is going to get executed. But when you go into the next environment, the prod environment or the next environment, for sure it has to be compiled into JavaScript, then it has to go.
Okay.
Okay.
I mean, prod environment, first we have to convert JS files, sir, or by default it will convert.
No, no, ma'am. We have to convert that manually.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
We have to convert that. If you see, when I was doing this React JavaScript, when you go with this is the project what we have done. Do you think that, for example, now I'm taking into the server, do you think that this complete folders will be copied and pasted to the server deploying? No, right? We are doing something called as npm run build. When I do npm run build, all these n number of JavaScript files, all these n number of TSX files, JSX files, those all will be converted into JavaScript
This.
files because even JSX, TSX also not a possible or your browser can't understand. So that is where the dist folder gets created, right? Okay.
Okay.
Say, if I say cd, if I say npm run build. Now, when I do something called as npm run build, now the dist folder gets created. You see, open this. This is the output of the file where there is no JSX, there is no TypeScript, nothing like this. So you see, all are pure JavaScript code. Now you can copy this guy, paste into your web application. If you see earlier, I have created one thing, something called as a web application. Where was that web server? You see, under the public, I never copied the complete React code. I only copied the bundled file. So the same thing happens in your React or React with TypeScript. Same thing happens in your Angular also. We have to build it. The build is going to compile indirectly, like it will convert into less number of JavaScript files or CSS files or convert the TSX and JSX into the normal JS files. Okay, this will be going to the server, not to the content what we are writing. This is as it is, cannot we take to the server to run it? Because in order to run all this, you need to have the React setup. Now, do you think that whenever the web page we are creating, can you expect the client also will install the React or Node and to run this guy? No, he just
No.
have a simple browser. That's it. So now we need to give the piece of code which is capable of directly running in the browser, independent of this setup, etc.
Okay.
Did that make clear?
Yes, sir. And only one question. It's not related this one, sir.
Mhm.
For deployment purpose, React. I mean, which platforms we will use, sir? I mean,
When you go to the real time, the deployment, right? For example, development of code is done. Now, who is going to do the build process? So in general, in your real time, Jenkins is the one what you're going to make use. So Jenkins is a very popular tool. What that guy will do is, so this will be taken care by the DevOps team in earlier days, but nowadays as a full stack developer, you need to even take care of deployment process, the DevOps process also. What they will do is, whenever you develop your code, once you submit in Git, what they will do is they will write the scripts in such a way that whenever you submit the code inside the Git, automatically Jenkins build will be triggered. Okay, automatically Jenkins build will be triggered. So what actually this guy is doing, this npm run build, whatever we are doing, right? Instead of we doing it manually, that guy will automatically run the npm run build from the
So
Git directly. And
for this,
whatever, sorry, go ahead.
sorry. For this also code quality will check, sir, through Sonar Cube or something.
Yes. I mean, when you run this
Then
Jenkins, right, it will automatically has all the checks, which is code coverage. Okay. What all the, till now, whenever you're writing your JavaScript code, the React code, we are only writing something called as a JSX file. We are not writing anything called as TypeScript. Okay. Whenever you go into this folder, where was that? React web application. Under your source, when you go to the components, you see under your event forms demo, you're writing only forms demo.css, forms demo.jsx. But actually, you should also have forms demo.ts file also. That dot test file. What does that test file will do? The test file is the one which gets hit whenever you say npm run test. You say npm run test you need to do. So that will be invoking all the test cases, whatever the code coverage you have done, right? You can use Jasmine, you can use Jest. So there are a lot
yes,
of test libraries are available. Those all will be automatically triggered, and they will tell you code coverage is 80%, 70%, 100%. Now, and when you say that Sonar Cube is going to check for the threads. I mean, for example, vulnerability threads are being there inside your code. You have to use one version, but you are using another version. You're using the wrong JS method where there's a chance of security glitch might come. So those type of things will be done by Sonar. You know, right? I mean, we'll be having something called a SAST test, pen test. Like this, there are different tests will be there. Those all will be invoked whenever you do this Jenkins build. And after doing this, now this guy has just generated the build, but we have to take the build to the next environment. That is where deployment process will come. Okay, under the deployment process, there are different ways, which is called as UCD, Urban Code Deployment Process, or nowadays Harness. That is one of the very popular tool using which deployment process can be done. So Harness is a tool. So using these tools, we will be moving set of tools to take or to deploy code to different environments. So this is all the set of things. And this all process, we call it as, people will simply call it as CI/CD pipelines. Okay, in interviews, they simply call you guys, do you have any experience with CI/CD pipelines? What do you mean by this? The CI/CD pipelines is they are expecting that you have an experience of taking the piece of code and deploying into different environments, and you have an experience of Jenkins tools, you have an experience of Harness, UCD, these all things.
oh, thank you.
Yeah. Any other question here? I know that it's out of the actual code, actual content, but yeah, this is very useful for you. At least people who are real time, you already might have an experience. People with who are freshers, this is a very new thing for you. And if you want more discussion to be done on this, please let me know anytime. Just let me know the topic. We can do the deep dive on it.
Sir, anyhow, the PS file is also internally converting to JS file, right? So,
Sorry. Could you repeat the question once again?
like, sir, when we compile it here, the PS file, internally it is again converting to JS file, right?
Yes.
The PS file.
Yes.
So what exactly the difference between the TS converted file and the normal JS file? And if so, like because of this declaring any variable or a method type specification, so why don't we implemented this type support in the JS itself?
That is how it is defined, right? If you say that, why don't we define the type support in your JavaScript? Because anyway, you're going with the TypeScript, again back into the JavaScript. Then why don't we define the type support in JavaScript in the sense we are not the creator of your JavaScript language, right? JavaScript is a scripting language which is already being defined with all this, with all the features, whatever it is having. It is a superheroic JavaScript. It is a superheroic programming language. It is one of the mostly used, topmost used programming language in the universe. Okay, then why the reason it wouldn't have defined the typing here? Because in some case, if you say that, for example, let's go with a car. Okay, let's take a practical example. You say that, boss, in car, I have something called as automatic. So that is a new feature what I'm providing for you, where you have a flexibility. You don't need to do anything. It is automatically doing the things. But what if like I specifically want to drive only in third gear? I don't want to go with the fifth gear. No, you can't say that, boss, okay, then why don't you implement manually? Why you're going with automatic? That's a new feature we have been providing. Right now, when you come to the JavaScript, it is a feature what it is providing that a flexibility that user don't need to define the data type. But what if you want to achieve, you want to use the advantage of the JavaScript. At the same time, I want to add some contracts to the user so that the data types will not be changed. Because when you go with the bigger projects, it will not be working fine. It will not be easy for us to maintain the different data type. It's not like one single person going to work on the one single uh, uh, page. It's like hundreds of people are working on the project. Now you need to have a contracts, right? For example, the contract, for example, I am constructing my own home. Okay, so like I'm a builder, I'm constructing my own home. I don't need to define the contracts. I can just go with, I know what are the dimensions I want to go. Now, 1,000 buildings I need to construct and 1,000 employees are participating here. Now, what is the contract here? I can't say that, okay, go and construct. Everyone will come with their own different dimensions and look and feel. Instead of that, the contract between them and me is the plan. The plan will tell you the dimensions. The plan will tell you the thickness. The plan will tell you the positions. The plan will tell you the shape. So that is what the agreement between them and me. Now, 1,000 buildings are constructed. Everything is always going to be same. The same thing when you go into the coding. If 1,000 people are working on JavaScript, there is a chance like I define a user variable, I define an object, and that object have any type of structure. And I don't want to do that. Everyone has to be on the same picture. It is where the contract is the data types. How I can give it in JavaScript, there is no way you can restrict it. That is where the layer of TypeScript we are adding. TypeScript is the one using which we could able to build the JavaScript code, or we could able to build a code which is for web application, and it is going to be taken with contracts. For sure, user can't break the contracts. Now, once that is done, it will be compiled back into JavaScript. That JavaScript is not a that is not for the development purpose. It's just converted. Now you go to the browser. Did that answer your question? Yes, no. Please respond after you answer the question, guys, so that I'll get to know whether you're clear or not. Okay. Any more questions?
Yes, sir.
All good? Anyone? Can I go forward? Okay. So this is about this. Coming back to the arrays. And this part, right, guys, everyone, like, I mean, why the reason you're going with the TypeScript, please be clear on this on the step one itself. Because like going forward, if you even after starting with your TypeScript, if you still have a question of why the reason you're going with the TypeScript, that will really stop you. I mean, you won't be so flexible when you're developing the web application. Okay, you should be very much clear that why the reason you're going with the TypeScript on the step one itself. That to make it more specific or contract specific, agreement specific, or type specific. Okay, that is the reason you're going with the TypeScript because JavaScript is not provided. then in that case, you may say, boss, you go with the Java itself because Java also is a contract based. In Java also, you have to for sure specify types. Then why the reason you're not going? But the Java cannot be converted back into the browser understandable language or C sharp. It is also type specific. It cannot be converted into browser understandable JavaScript. But whereas TypeScript, it is capable of converting back into the browser understandable. So that is the reason we choose TypeScript. Okay. In fact, the definition or the development of TypeScript happened only for this purpose. They want to give a specific, they can't modify the JavaScript programming language, right? Okay, because that is how it is being built. So they want to put a layer on the top of it. That is where TypeScript has come. So what they said is, boss, use our language so that like you will get the the agreements and the rules and regulations. Whereas if you want to convert into JavaScript, you have a flexibility, you can convert it. So that is how they have come up with. Okay, so coming back to this guy. So hope everybody is clear with this arrays and all, right? So the new things is read only is the new thing. You can define tuples. Tuples are fixed array with fixed type of data type. And read only we have seen. Yeah, so this is about the arrays. Let us have some look on a bit of objects. Or else shall we go with, okay, let's go with objects, then we go with the functions. Okay, so I say var user details. We already know objects which are in the form of key and value base, right? So I say name so and so. And one more thing, guys, for the Boolean, I forgot to mention that, in your JavaScript, I say var something called as is fee paid equal to something called as one. Okay, now if I say something called console.log type of is repaid. So when I say something called as Boolean, in your JavaScript, if I say true or one, both indicates Boolean. If I say zero or false, both indicates Boolean. Whereas in case of your TypeScript, if it is Boolean, it has to be either true or false. Okay. It has to be either true or false only. We cannot go with something called as 0 and 1. Are we clear? In your TypeScript, we cannot make 0, we cannot treat 0 and 1 as a Boolean values. It has to be for sure true or false. Okay, make it as a note. Okay. Now, this is how you're going to define the objects. If I say console.log, so and so, or console.log objects, and how you're going to read the data, you know that type of so and so. And if I say console.log name, this is how I'm defining a simple object I have defined, and I was just consoling this guy. Now, yes.
Yeah, we can execute it, sir, without converting this in Excel, without converting to JS also. Maybe just for our testing purpose.
So you
NPX,
want to do it using your TSC, or that is there is something called as TSC node you're saying, right?
something NPX, TSC, TSX, and something TS file name.
That is what, right? As I said, that is like on-fly execution of your TypeScript without converting. I mean, those are extra libraries which are being used in order to do that. There is something called as TSC node also. Let me check. TSC.
Just Node also will work without TSC.
Sorry?
Node also works. Yes.
Here, object in TypeScript. So I say objects in TypeScript. Yeah. So it is on-fly doing your conversion. Okay, but you cannot see the converted file. Okay, so this is how, if you see, the object structure is being shown. What is the data type of this guy object, and how you're going to read one single type list. But this is like the way you're defining in your JavaScript. Where is the contract here? The problem what we have is, for example, when you're defining something like this, user might say is admin, or user might say something called as address. Okay, like this address, I'm expecting something called as object, but what if user says address equal to something like this? It's a string. So that is like it is missing the contract. My expectation is address should be a object, but here he is defining as a string. So how you can restrict and assume like this is user details one. Okay, and there is another user details I'm expecting from the user, which is C saying address details two. He is defining this address as an object. Okay, something like this. And there is something called as var user details three equal to something like this. If you see here, the problem what you see is I am expecting the user details every time should have a name, age, admin, and address. But this guy, he's having name, age, admin, and address, where address is going to give an object. And he's having some extra property, something called as hobbies. I don't want this. My expectation is when it is user details, this is the set of properties, and this is the data type for sure you need to follow. So how you're going to define that? So the data contracts, people call it as the data contract is nothing else. I mean, contract is specifying the data type agreement. Okay. So data contracts, how you're going to build the data contracts in your TypeScript, that can be done by using something called as type or by using something called as interface. Okay. The data contracts, whatever the data you're going to define in your TypeScript, that can be done by using the either type or interface. First of all, let us see what do you mean by interface. Then we'll see the difference between the type and interface. Now, what do you mean by an interface? An interface is the structure of an object. Interface is a blueprint or structure that defines the shape of an object. Okay, what is the shape of your object? What are the set of properties it is going to have? What property, what type of value it has to have? Those all things can be defined by using something called as interface. Interface is never supported in your JavaScript, but when you go with your object-oriented features, interfaces are supported. As types in TypeScript, interface is supported. So how are you going to define an interface? We simply use a keyword, something called as interface. Now I say that user details model. You know, these all things are generally called as model, which is going to be the data type. I say like this. Okay, I'm going to say user details model implies user details contract. Anytime anyone who defines the user details, they should have a name, which is a string. They should have an age, which is a number. They should have is admin, which should be a boolean. They should have an age, which should be a string. Or like an object. You see, this is a union type. I mean, address can be directly a string value, or it could be an object with all these values. Hobbies, question mark. What is this question mark here? Question mark indicates it is a optional property. I mean, any of the user details what you're giving, either you may have the hobbies or you may not have the hobbies. It will be working fine. Okay, now you say, or instead of hobbies, I'll say something called as passport number. Okay, the passport number is I don't want to make it as a string. I'll simply say it's a string. So what do you mean by string here? I'm not making array of all strings here. So if you see, I'm going to define a user details model. How you're going to define it? I say var user details one colon. What is the data type I'm specifying? I'm defining the I'm specifying the data type as user user details model. So every data inside this guy, this details one should have the same structure as it is. Example, I should have a name. I should have a age. I should have is admin. I should have address. It can be even string also because I mentioned it as a union, BIE India, like this. Now you see the advantage what I have is I am the developer one who is defining this. There is another developer who is also working on my same project. He's saying user details too. I say something called a say some fresh, and he forgot to mention the age. Okay, if he missed to mention the age, you see he is automatically getting the error over here itself. You see what actually it is saying? Property age is missing. It is mandatory that every user detail should have a age here. Okay, now I say age, something like this. In the same way, why this is administering, comma is expected. Okay, age is 25. Okay, in the same way, I'm saying that something called as house number. Okay, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, like this. Now we see it is going to be an error. Why the reason was there is no key called as house number, which is being specified under this model. So this is the contract what we have done. Boss, we are not giving the passport number. Still, it is not throwing an error. Any property which is ending with question mark, which is becoming an optional. You give the passport number or you don't give the passport number, doesn't make any difference. You may give it or you may not give it. If you don't specify question mark, that becomes a mandatory value. Okay, Avinash, is serial wise mandatory? No, that is never a case with object, right? I can put this is admin here. I can put this guy. No, it is never a case even in your JavaScript also. The same with your TypeScript. Any questions in the interface? An interface is we are going to define the contract or the structure or the blueprint of an object. The object, what is going to come for you, how it is going to look like, that is what you're going to define in your interface. And in your interface, you can even define your methods also. For example, I say display details like this. You see here, display details is a function which is going to return void. Okay, this is a method what I'm going to specify. Now, if you see, I'll come over here, display details is going to be a function with something like this. You can define whatever the value you wanted. So this is a contract. Under this guy, these are all the properties and values, and we can even give the methods also as a contract, as part of the contract. Any questions up to this?
There are methods other than what are the syntaxes?
I didn't get him. Repeat it again.
Methods, you have given void type, right? Other than void, what are the possible?
Anything. I mean,
types?
all the data type numbers, void indicates that that method is not returning anything. When you're defining the, if you remember, we have discussed about at the time of data types, people asked about what is the difference between the any and void. Any indicates for sure you have to return any of the data type. Void indicates you're not going to return anything. So if you say something called as number, now it is going to throw me an error here. Why the reason you're not returning a number here? Now I need to say return something called as 20. It is done. Right? So if you when this data type is any data type, what you do, the value with the type of value which is being returned from the particular function. Any more questions?
Sir, here if we are implementing the interface, right? We don't need to specify any keywords, sir. Implements, extends, or like that.
Here,
Just
what
to-
we are doing is we are defining, okay, from your case, what you are saying is when you come to your Java and all, how you are going to take the interface, how you are going to implement an interface by using something called as implements keyword. But
Yes.
here, you see, I am defining a data type here. For example, I say var a colon number is equal to something called as 23, right?
Yes.
What I'm saying is a variable is of data type number. This value is 23. Here, number I'm not defining. There's a predefined data type. Whereas coming to this var user details one colon, this data type I am defining through interface. A structure, what I am defining through interface. Here I'm not going to implement the interface here. I am making use of the interface. I'm using the interface to specify the rule, saying that boss, this user details should follow the same rules what being defined into this model or interface. Am I clear?
Bit confused. Sorry, sir. I mean,
No,
here
not a
in
problem. Go ahead.
interface purpose here and Java is different, sir, or same? I mean,
Even in interface in Java is also the same. In your Java, what you do is interface, okay, something called as user details. Okay, you're going to define something. Now you say class ABC
implement.
implements user details, right? Under the
Yes.
user details, now for sure, you need to define all the methods. In your interface, you're going to define only int A, something called as float B, okay, something called as display method, something like this. Now, under this guy, now you say uh, ABC constructor. Under that, now you're going to ABC constructor. Under that, A is equal to say some 40. I say B is equal to say some 4.5. At the same time, I'm going to use the display method, something like this, right?
Yes.
So you are implementing this interface to make sure all these properties have been defined. Along with this, you can even define something called extra values also, right?
Yes.
In case of your Java. But here I'm not using the interface for such purpose. Here I'm using the interface as like an agreement or a data, as like a data contract, data model, saying that, okay, this is the data type, what I'm going to specify.
Okay. Okay, sir. Got it. I mean, for data purpose, so we are using, I mean, exact
Only
data
for
we have
the
to use.
data structure to define, we are going to make use of the interface.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, now another thing what you have is, for example, I say another interface and again user data model. This is a small difference you have. Under that, I'm going to say user current location is going to be a string. This is what I defined. I mean, boss, you are defining the same interface once again. You see, same user details model, but you're putting something called a user current location. But when you come here, it simply says that user current location is missing. What is happening? Is it is overriding this? No. In this case, what happens is it merges the existing properties with the new set of property. That is the reason this guy is saying that was user current location is also needed. Because you see, now we can say user current location is going to be something called as so and so. Here also I need to say user current location is going to be so and so. Am I clear? So when you are defining the interface multiple times with the same number, all things will be clubbed. This is equal to this guy. If you define like this, you see, this is going to be the same. Am I clear? When you define, this is a very good interview question, guys. What is going to happen if you define same interface with multiple times with some new properties? All links will be merged here. And for example, here I say age is going to be something called a string, I will say. Earlier you mentioned it as number, now you mentioned it as string. Now we see it is saying that age can be string, sorry. If you see here, this is the error what I'm going to get. It is saying that declaration should be of same type. You have already defined them as a, what do you say, as a number. You cannot make it as a string. Okay, for sure, you need to make it as a number because we have already defined this. If I make it as a string at the initial stage itself, then it will say that boss, it should be a string because you started with that. Am I clear? If it is different property, then you can define it. But if it's the same property, same data type should be followed, even in the second declaration.
Yeah, got it.
Okay.
Thanks.
Sorry,
So,
ma'am.
so line number 4, we have created interface type user detail model. And line number 22, we are using it here.
Okay, line number 4, we created an interface. Okay.
Yeah, line number 22, we are using that.
Yes.
So what we call it as like we are using the interface or how to
It is not like using the interface. We can say that we are defining the structure of this object to follow this interface model. We are actually telling this object type that you have to be for sure user details one. You have to for sure follow the rules being defined into this model. That is what we are defining. I'm not using the interface. I am telling this guy, I'm specifying this guy to follow the rules being defined into this model. Okay.
like we are using the rules which are defined with this interface. You can say that.
No, right? When again, I'm telling, right? What if you say that I am, for example, you tell me there is a building plan. Okay, I have defined a building plan on the paper. Now, when I'm constructing the home, do you say that I'm using the plan or I'm following the plan to design home? I'm following the plan, right? I'm not using the plan there. So here I can't say that I'm using these methods, I'm using these values here. No, I am following this data model to make sure, while defining the structure of these user details. I'm actually defining at line number 22. What are you doing? I am defining an object called as user details. I'm following with the rules being defined into this interface. Clear?
Yes. Yeah. Sir, can we add when we are using that model, can we add extra fields?
Extra fields, yes, interfaces, you can add multiple interfaces also. That is what you're saying?
Yes, when we are using that model, after in the line number after 22,
No, you cannot, right?
can we add
Obviously, when
extra
you
fields?
no, no, here, if I say that, office location, Bangalore, then it is going to throw me an error because the contract, what you said is this guy. For sure, you need to make sure this is the contract which has been defined. If you say that office location is optional or mandatory, then you can specify something like this question mark. You see, passport number is not mandatory. If you add it, I'll keep it. But PAN number, you can't do that because as per the rule, it is not defined. Here, I'm not defining a class. This is where you have a difference with your class. If you define a class, you see, that is what I was defining earlier. When you say a class is implementing an interface, it can make use of all these properties along with some new properties. But here, I'm not using the interface. I'm defining a variable or I'm defining an object to make sure to follow the structure, what is being defined in the interface. Am I clear?
Okay. Sir, if you want, we can also create extra methods outside of it, interface, right?
Outside of interface, you can always do
No,
that,
no.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, outside of interface, for example, here I want to define a function, something called a sample that you can do, but that will not be part of this object.
Yeah.
I mean, interface will be mainly used to define the data type. For example, let us take a practical example. You come into one of the class. There is a UI class which is happening. 100 people are there. You tell him, give your details. When you say give your details, everyone will give different details. When I will come, I will say that my name, my age, and my gender. Second person will come, he'll say name, age, gender, passport number, and PAN card number. Third guy will come, he'll say address, name, age, father name, and mother name. Fifth guy will come, my current location, native location, and all. I don't want that. No, how do you make sure every student is going to give the right data, what you wanted? Or mandatory data what you wanted. You wanted for sure name, age, gender. Also the data type. You wanted the name should be a string. You wanted the age should be string. So that is the rule what you have defined. Now what you define? You create an interface. Now you tell the student, extend this interface or make sure the data what you're defining follows this model. That's it. Now, every student is going to give you the right data what you wanted. It is not like what they wanted, but the way you wanted, you are getting the data. The way your application needed this, you are getting the data. Clear?
Yes, sir. Sir, in real time, generally, the data which we get from, API or something like
101%
that.
in the real time, we are going to make use of this. For example, when I say that product details, okay, when the ad user is adding an item into the cart, to make sure something is not missing. When a user is adding one item into the cart, the picture of that guy should be, product name should be there, price should be there, number of items should be there. If we miss it, obviously it is not going to execute. So we make sure we are going to follow that. And this definition is why we are giving is not for the end user, for the developers only. For the developers only, we are giving this. Because if it is for the end user, we would have defined, we would have expected in JavaScript also. The reason why we give this contract is when hundreds of people are working on the same project, they make sure everyone is following the same rule while they define the piece of code. That's it. Okay, Can we go
This is
forward?
purely for the developer, right?
Purely
It
for
is,
the developer. Again, I said you right. If it is for the end user, then we would have done this at your what do you say? Even after compilation also. But yeah, I mean, after reading the data, we also make sure if it is not matching the structure, we can even alert the user, or we write the corresponding code.
like, sir, in those cases, like if the user has to miss any of the fields, then we are going to create some form for, validations required, something like that. Then he's
Yes,
not
we
going
do
to
that,
miss it,
right?
right?
For example, I say that you are saying that you're going to define a contractor. Okay, interface, vehicle, something like this. Now, why this is coming. This is following JavaScript. No, sorry, Java.
Before going
Interface.
to, yeah, just only one small question. So here also, like, we can define two interfaces and implement the like
Yes,
class
yes,
one,
yes,
user one, user two.
yes,
Oh,
yes. Okay, I'll come to that. Let me answer your question first. I say interface, for example, student details is one of the interface. I say interface. Okay, for example, interface college details. Okay, and then I say interface university details. I say interface something called as user details. Now, user details will extend university details, comma, college details. Like this, an interface can extend any number of interfaces. Okay, for example, here this is college details, university details. Under your college details, I say college name is going to be a string, college ID is string, this so and so, right? In the same way, I say university ID, university name. Now, when I say student here, what the student should be having? Student user details is you say extend this guy, user ID is so and so, username is so and so. Now, for example, I say where user or else user colon user details. If I say user details, now what is going to have? He should have a user ID, he should have a username, he should have a college name, he should have this university, everything. Then only it is a right guy. So this guy, now for example, now user details is having this details along with university details, along with college details. We can extend any number of interfaces like this. We'll be using the extends keyword. Am I clear? That is what your question, right?
yeah, okay, sir.
I can copy this right here.
Sir, it is always necessary to create interface for structure.
Is always necessary. In fact, that is the reason we have gone with the TypeScript. If we would have I mean, that is how you're going to define an object structure, right? That is what it is expected for the TypeScript. I mean, if you're not doing it, we would have directly done with your JavaScript itself. I want to define an object and I want to make it as a I want to make it as a type based, or I want to define it as a contract based. That is the reason I need to go with an interface. Not like mandatory, but if you're not doing it that, you would have directly done in your JavaScript also. So here I'm defining one of the object where book details is equal to an object. Earlier we have done, right? When I was consoling, you see, this is an object. I have not defined any structure. I have not defined any interface. But what is the use if I'm doing that? If I have to define with the contract, that is where I go for this, right? Any more questions? Any more questions? Are we good? Are we good with interfaces in your TypeScript? Okay. I think like Swati, I was in between your question. Hope I'm clear with that, right? Or you still have that question? Let me know if you still have it.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Clear,
I
ma'am?
have
Or,
doubt. No, it's not clear.
okay, what was that? What is
Like
your
how
question?
exactly, you told like creating this interface, it is going to help the developer mainly, not the user. Like what if, like I'm asking, like we have already the prompts which are validating, which are putting some required things to accept the its particular type.
Yeah, I mean, you can make sure that is fine. Okay, what you're doing is, okay, when I'm reading the data from the user, I make sure the form is created with only 5 fields. And under the 5 fields, I make sure only that type of data is being defined. So in that case, why do we go for this, right? Right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That is what.
Okay, so in that case, it might not be, I mean, you are putting the validation that is fine. In that case, instead of user data validation, we might be depending on the API response. Then I can say that to make sure the valid data I'm reading from the API response, then I'm going for this. Is that clear? In that case, I'll say that I'll be using the interface in order to read the response from the API, because API response, yes, the client side, whatever you said is very much valid, that you are putting the validations there to make sure what this same type of data will be there. What if you're getting a response from the API, which is completely not in your control? Client side, you had a control and you could able to some validations. Now, what if how you're going to put the validations in your server side? That only this type of data is there, not other than this. That for sure you need this guy, right?
Like, sir, all the time we cannot make sure or guarantee like what are the data uh, which the API
That
is
is why we
fetching.
are going for this, right? I mean, all the time we are not sure or you're not guaranteed that this data might come. But if that data is not coming, you need to throw it as an error. If that
Okay.
type of data is not coming, you should not process the data. That type of data is not coming, you should not go further. So that validation
Okay.
I'm putting by using the data types.
Okay. So good.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, anything else?
But still, sir, needs some real time is possible in the future process.
Sorry, ma'am. I'm not understanding. Your voice is
Yeah,
clear,
it's
but
okay, sir. I got the concept, but not totally convinced. Like in future classes, if possible, we
yeah,
can
sure, sure. I mean, while
fix it.
going forward, right, while implementing in the
Yeah, yeah.
projects and all, you can still go. Okay,
Yes,
types
thank you.
in TypeScript dot ps. So there is something called while you're defining the data types, right? Either you can say interface, something called as a book. Okay, where title is so and so, author is so and so, like this. In the same way, we can even define with something called as type. Type is also one of the data type. Okay, type, we can say something called say some product like this, ID as number, and so and so. Now I say, I mean, you are, or else I don't want to go with bigger details, or else to make it one optional, I will go with so and so. This is price, description, ID, and so and so, like this. So what is the difference here? You see, I'm defining an interface. Now I say where my book is equal to so and so, title author is so and so, genre is fiction. Okay, and I say where my product is going to be product and so and so. What is the difference? Was you are saying an interface for defining the contract for defining a book. You're defining a type to define the contract for the product. Now, what is the difference between these two here? The major difference, what you have in case of, I mean, both are going to be same. Even for here also, you can even define a function. I say display info. Okay, don't make it as an optional. This is a method. Now, where is the book here? I need to say display info is going to be something like this. In the same way, even type also, I can say display product info. Okay, don't make it as optional. Now, over here also, I need to define like this. Like this. Okay, so both type and interface are majorly used in the same way. Both are used to make a contract. Okay, in that case, can I say type new product is equal to product and so and so? What do you mean by this guy? Extending a type. Whereas coming to the interface, I say interface new book extends book here. Now we see the difference here. Whenever you say something called as a type, if you want to extend the type extension will be done by using something called as ampersand symbol. This is what the difference I'm seeing. Similarities, you see, if you similarities is both are used to define the structure, both are used to define the method. We can define the optional, both are going to be same. And whenever you are using this guy, you see, you're going to make use of the same, either the type or interface. Am I clear? Now, what is the difference between these two? In case of your interface, when you're extending an interface, you will be using the extends keyword. In case of your type, you're going to assign that guy. So what I'm doing here, I'm not extending the existing one. I am saying that new product, you need to have that along with this new properties. Whereas in case of your interface, you say whatever the existing new book we have, along with this is the book which I mean extend these new properties along with the existing book properties. So this is the difference between this type. And one more thing is when I say interface book, right? Now I say interface, again book I'm going to do, and I say book price is going to be some number. This we can do. We have already seen this. It is going to merge these properties and going to make it as a single guy. Whereas coming to the type guy, I say product and I say something called as category as a string. Now you see it is going to throw me an error. Okay, you cannot define multiple types with the same names. Whereas you can define multiple interface with the same names, it is going to merge them into one single interface. So these are the two major differences we have with your types and interfaces. Okay, difference between interface and types. Okay, interface can be extended through extends the alias keyword, whereas type can be extended through ampersand. Just give me a second, guys. Yeah, sorry guys. Okay, so yeah, this is one of the difference. And the second thing is interface can be redeclared. It will automatically merges the content or the merges the definition, whereas types cannot be redeclared. Okay, so these are the difference between interfaces and types. One of the very important question people will be asking you. They may say that one case you're defining interface. They may ask you that why you're not defining why you're not defining a type. They may say that you're defining a type. They may say that why not interface. So you should have these answers too. If you make sure that I'm going to define one of the data structure or the or a contract, saying that for sure it is not going to be modified, you can go with the type. Okay. There is a chance that you are going to define a structure where there is a chance like in future it may extend or you may modify that, then you can go with an interface also. So you should have your answers. Any questions up to this?
Sir, actually, interface and type both are, the syntactically they are different, but the purpose is same, right?
Syntactically different. Okay.
While implementing, like using it.
Using is
But
also same, right? Using is same. You see, the intention of defining the interface and types. I mean, why the reason types and interface is being defined in your TypeScript in order to define the data structure. The intention of defining the type and interface is going to be same. The way we are
yes,
using, how they are being defined is going to be different.
like I mean to say, when the purpose is same, like why they've created two variants,
Both are different,
the
right?
type
Purpose is
keyword and
same.
interface.
Purpose is same. For example, so I have a requirement, Swati, saying that I say that I'm going to define something called as a building plan. Okay. Is there is a chance in future I may modify that, extend that? For
Yes,
example, I am defining a building requirement, saying that, okay, this is how it has to be. After 6 months of time, when the plan is getting implemented, there is a chance of getting modifications, right?
yes,
In that case, I go with the interface so that like in future, I don't need to go with the basic plan. I can define one more interface, it will automatically get merges, right? Whereas
okay.
coming to the type, for example, I am saying that the requirements what I wanted or I say that, for example, in order to get your PAN card, what are the details I wanted? Do you think that this is going to be modified?
No.
Or else I say that human body parts, I'm going to define a type. Is there is any chance that I'm going to modify that? That is going to be mandated. That is what I'm going to have. So in that case, I'll go
Using
with the
type.
type, right? That's it. Okay. Any more questions?
In that case,
Any?
I can declare directly an object which accept only the required fields, right? Why in that case also I need to go for type. I can create a
I mean, that
separate.
is right. That's a contract. If you say that, if you directly go
Okay.
with an object, then you're not at all utilizing the advantage. What the reason why we have come to the TypeScript is okay for sure, right? First of all, before going for this, I mean, you guys need to ask a question yourself saying that why the reason I'm going with the TypeScript. The reason why I'm going with the TypeScript is whatever the data I am defining, I make sure I to have the contracts. That is the reason I'm going with the TypeScript. That we are clear. Now, after entering to the TypeScript, if we say that I will define an object without a contract, why the reason you have come for that question will come, right? So the reason why we have choose this programming language is to make sure whatever the data I'm defining, I want to secure my data. I want to secure the structure of the data so that like any number of people, whoever is using, to make sure no one is violating the structure of this. That is the reason I have come here. So after that, on the top, now how you define that? Either you use interface, either you use types. That all depends on your requirement. Yeah.
Yes, sir, got it. Sir, other than this security through data types which are mentioning in the interface of type, do we have other advantages too?
That's it, ma'am. That the main intention of coming for this is type specific. That's it. Other
Like
than
other
that, no other
features,
usage. No other usages.
other features. Okay.
Like no, there is no other uses. I mean, these are the main usages what we have. Okay. Next, this is how you're going to define the structure. Is everyone clear, guys? Can we go forward?
So the basic difference between interface and type is just like in future, if there is going to be any modification, we go for interface. If there is a tightly coupled, there is nothing is going to modify. We're going to be type, right? So,
X.
is that
Yes, it is expected that type you go if you are saying that the structure is going to be static for sure.
okay?
Okay.
In the declaration, you have used semicolon. Is it allowed or should we use comma?
Which line number you're saying?
In all lines, so like in line number 13, ID, number, you use semicolon.
I have done the same for the interface also, right?
Yes. Just I was asking, like
Yeah,
in
it is
normal
going to be the
declarations,
same.
we use
Yes.
comma.
It is like a comma object type you're going to specify, right? Yeah, that but in case of your interface, if you see here, while I'm defining interfaces, it is going to be semicolon only. Because comma will come when you're defining it. Semicolon will come when you're declaring it.
Sir, and in time of initialization, it should be capital capital
No,
letter
it is
question marks.
recommended. It's not mandatory. I can say something called as book also. But in general, either you're giving an interface, either you're giving a class name, or you're giving a type name, recommended to go with the uppercase, start with, but not mandatory.
Okay, sir.
Sir, what is the difference between question mark and any?
Question mark and
Any type?
okay, question mark indicates this property itself is optional. You may give this property, may not give this property. But if I say any indicates that if I say name, any, name is mandatory. You have to give the name property. The value of the name could be name, number, boolean, any of the data type. Am I clear? Question mark indicates it's an optional property. You may give that property, you may not give that property. But still the structure is going to be, it's not going to throw any error. Yes,
Yes, got
Shivani?
it. Yes.
Can we go forward?
Can we declare the book interface in other class as well, TypeScript class?
Can we declare book? Yes, until and unless both are not going to be same. I mean, you mean to say, can I give the same book name again?
Yeah, in the other
But that,
class, other TypeScript class.
yeah, other TypeScript file. But again, the scope should not be same, right? If you have different scope, different file, that is fine. But for example, if you try to import it or you're making it as one single
Okay, I got it.
scope, then it is going to override. Not override, merging will come into the picture.
I mean, from this, technically, there is no sense of adding another book. We can add this attribute as part of the first book interface itself, right? And the book
Exactly.
price.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Actually, like I have done that so that I want to show you. Now, if you see, okay, as you said, if you take out this guy, you put into another file, then merging is going to happen. I just want to show you that here it is not going to throw an error. Instead, it is merging this. Technically, yes,
Oh,
we generally don't do in the one single file.
okay, got it.
Okay,
Thank you.
going forward, this is about the objects and arrays. Let us throw some light even on your functions.
So can we make these interfaces common for all the files?
In general, that is what we do in your real time. In your real time, what we do is we define data models.ts file. We define all the data models over there. User data model, product data model, customer data model, cart data model. You define all those. Now you you export it. Now you import it and just make use of it.
Yeah, got it. Thank you.
Okay. When we start our project, we start doing that.
However, we are exporting functions, sir. Same like that interface also we can export.
Yes, ma'am. Again, export, default, interface, user, so and so. Export default keyword is going to be same. Either it's a type or a function or a interface or a class or a variable. Export default is going to be same. Or it's just export also. You know the difference.
Just we need to import and we can use the same.
That's it. Okay, I say something called a sample function. How you're going to define a function here? You say function, something called as display function names recommended to go with a camel case, display user info, like this. So whenever you're going to define any of the function, the syntax is function keyword, okay, function name, parameter 1, type 2, what all the parameters you want to give, and colon the return one. So this is going to be the syntax of your any function. You can either use the function keyword or you can go with the expression based also, or you can go with the arrow based. It's up to you, but this is how the syntax is. Whatever the parameters you're going to pass to the particular function, for sure, we need to make sure the data type has to be passed. Okay. Now you see display username or user info. You're passing two parameters. You know, earlier in case of your JavaScript, if I say something called as Alice, I say something like this. Okay. Now you see it is going to throw us an error. In case of your JavaScript, it is not at all an error. In JavaScript, you define any number of parameters and you pass any number of parameters. It is not at all going to throw any type of error, isn't it? But in case of your JavaScript, in case of your TypeScript, it is mandatory that you need to match the number of parameters at the same time, the data type of the parameters also. Are we clear? So here I need to say ls and I say something called as 630 like this. Now let's go into this. What's the file name? Functions, right? Okay, the sum is going to, why did I do the sum? Functions in TypeScript, I said, right? Okay, this is how it is coming. If you miss anything, it is going to throw us an error. Now let's execute this. You see at the time of, okay, this is now at the time of conversion, I say TNC function TypeScript.ts. You see, this is where it is going to throw us an error. So you see, this is again a problem when you are directly running this guy with the node without it is running as like a JavaScript. That will be a problem for you again. Okay, but this guy has to be run again here. This is what the advantage. If we directly show it as undefined, then there is no use of going with the TypeScript. Okay, so here if you see, I'm calling this guy as a TypeScript. Now it is saying that boss, this guy is it is expected a number, string in a number, you're passing only one parameter. Okay, any questions up to this? Okay, in the same way, what if like I want to make a function uh, uh, proper function parameters as optional. Okay, I say display address. Okay, I would like to say something called address is door number, which is in string, comma, street name, colon, which is a string. I say door number, I can make it as a number. Okay, and I would like to say pin code, which is a string, and I say I can say nearby where I want to make it as a optional. Okay, like this. So you may give or may not give the nearby, but whereas number door number, street name, and pin code. Those are mandatory attributes. So we can even give the optional parameters even for a while you're defining a function. Okay. At the same time, if you want to give some default values, okay, for example, door number is equal to something called as 230. Okay, if you don't pass any value, that will be automatically taken. If you pass any value, this will be considered. And we have already seen the same function can be even defined as expressions also. For example, the same function, if you want to define with your arrow function, you can say var so and so is equal to so and so is equal to, you can make it as an expression like this. Display address is something called display like this. So either you can say normal function or you can even say the like expression paste equal to expression or arrow function so that you can do. Okay. Any questions up to this?
Sir, we are using Node, the TS file name and TCS, TSC, the file name, right? Like Node is used to directly execute, like what is the difference
Node
and
is the
in which
command which
scenarios
is
we are going to use?
directly on fly converting that into JavaScript and executing. It is never a scenario to use it. Just for practicing, we are doing this. But in general, when you go to the real time, when you're going with a React application, you don't go with like individual TS files, right? Here we are learning the TypeScript code individually, separated from your React. That is the reason we are doing this. But in general, we don't do this.
Got it.
Yeah, yeah. Any more questions?
Arrow function just can you re-explain one, sir? Last one.
I didn't get you.
Last one, just can you reiterate, sir, once? Yeah, line number 18.
A line. I mean to say earlier also we used to define functions like this. Later, if you want to define arrow functions also, that's it. I mean, it's the same definition. I mean to say, if you go with arrow function also, the same definition, just only syntax is going to be changed with arrow. Now that when you use arrow, you know that it's automatically even coming with what do you say? It is going to hold the current object reference, right? So that is by default there here. Okay. Any more questions?
Sir, in React TS, I mean TypeScript, when they will go, I mean in real-time projects, and JavaScript when they will go, I mean.
As we see the advantages of the TypeScript, right? The same advantages. If you want to have an advantage, you're creating a big React project where you want to make sure the data types of the variables or the objects or anything, you want to make it as agreement based. Then they will directly go with the TypeScript. No, there is no agreement. Like, for example, you are creating a standalone project. You are the only developer, one simple React project you're doing. You can directly go with the JavaScript because you know what are the agreements. You make sure that what is the syntax of it. But when you go with the bigger project, for sure they will go with React TypeScript only.
Okay, sir.
Okay, so
I heard, sir, enterprise applications, they will use Angular only. I mean, medium-sized applications, they used to go with React. Is it true, sir?
no, ma'am. I am working for, okay, for example, earlier, when you go with an internet banking application, you know Wells Fargo, right? Wells Fargo is, I think you are from US, right, Sri?
Yes, yes, sir.
Yeah, so you might be using the Wells Fargo account. Like I was an ex-employee of Wells Fargo. So in your Wells Fargo, for example, if you go with the internet banking, right? Do you think that internet banking is a small scale application or an enterprise bigger application?
Enterprise application.
Do you think that they would have used Angular or React?
I think bank applications mostly preferred React applications nowadays.
No, that is never a case. It's not like bank will go to Angular, other will go to the React and all. It's all like it depends upon the technical stack or team what they have. So even like earlier question, what you said is Angular will be for bigger React applications. For smaller, you go with the React. But a Wells Fargo internet banking application has been developed using React. I was part of it. And that too, it is not like only React. It is a micro front end. There are some components which are being developed by Angular, some components which are being developed by React, and those all will be merged and they make it as a single application.
So
Okay.
how they will match, sir? I mean, a
That is
micro
micro
front-end.
front end, right? Micro front end is one single application. Under that, individual components will be coming from individual web page URLs. Those
So
all are
kind of,
completely.
I mean,
Just give me a second.
how
Hello? Yeah, sorry. Go ahead, Sri.
we will use microservices for Fusion client and all for the intercommunication. Like that micro front end also we have some intercommunication tools, sir.
Yes. Micro front end is individual components. We'll be creating it to a separate, separate web pages. And those all web pages will be integrated into one of the web pages. Have you anyone ever heard about monorepo structure?
No, sir.
Okay. So, I mean, if you just
Sir?
have some time, just explore the monorepo. So under that monorepo, you'll understand that individual components will be created and individual components will be deployed into individual port numbers or individual destinations. That's a different discussion. Maybe if you want more, we can discuss more on that. Okay.
So last
You
question,
can
sir,
ping.
like where we can learn that micro front ends are actually in my project also they are like implementing the micro front ends. Like, is there any thing to where I need to learn the micro front ends?
Where we need to learn, I mean, it is nothing like you will be learning a new technology, Ganesh, there. It is the architecture, what you follow is the micro front end. Now we say that React, you need to learn React library to implement. You need to say Angular, you need to learn Angular. But when you say micro front end, it's an architecture, is the structure, the way you develop your application is what you follow. It is nothing new you have to learn. Maybe like tomorrow you just remind me, I'll just throw some light on for you guys, like what is
Yes,
micro
sir.
front end.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks guys.
Sir,
So let's pause.
that
Go ahead, Suj.
so that banking application which you worked, the variant which you have selected is JS or TS?
Mine is, I have purely it is TypeScript, ma'am.
Okay.
As I said, right, I mean, when it is bigger interface application, like n number of people are working, it's always recommended to go with the TypeScript base because there is a chance of data missing, contracts missing. But there are
Yes, sir,
standalone
got it.
applications also I have done where, for example, I was creating one of the one component for trade based, even in Wells itself, for the trade based, one of the component I was using. So where like three people were working in the team. So it is our decision that we thought like, okay, let's go with the JavaScript to don't to make this complex, but we make sure the contract is going to be within us. We make sure to strictly follow that. So that is where we use the JavaScript. But if it is like 100 people or 1,000 people working on the project, I can't go to each and every person and say that user details should be only this. Instead of that, what I can do is when I'm defining the structure of the page itself, I will define all the data models. Now I'll tell that everyone, make sure you only follow this data model. Done. Right?
Yeah, thank you, sir.
Okay, let's pause it for today, guys. We'll be taking
Sir,
back on tomorrow.
Sir,
Go
here
ahead,
in the
Shiva.
screen, there is void means it is not returning anything,
Function
right?
is not returning anything.
Okay.
Void
Yes.
indicates that the function don't need to use the return. If I say
So
something
it's
called as
just
number,
okay.
function has to return a number. For fast function, I say return something like this. If I say any, also has to return something. But void
Okay.
indicates you're not going to return anything.
Okay. Got it.
Okay. Have a good day. Bye for today, guys.